Hello, everybody, and warm welcome from my side. My name is Lennart Ullmann, Director with PwC, responsible for the SAP Treasury practice in Germany. Today with me, we have...
Yeah, Christoph Lange from the Otto Group Holding. I'm with the Otto Group IT, to be more precise, as a product lead or head of department with all the financial systems we are running within the Otto Group Holding.
Very good. So, what we brought you today, this is the agenda. We'll start with a short introduction. Who's PwC? You might have heard of us. Who's the Otto Group? And Christian will take over to give you an overview about the current status of Otto, where they stay with the current payment environment. Then I will take over and talk a little bit about our project approach, how we tackled the project, and also the results of the first phase, the target operating model, as well as the business case and the transition roadmap. In the end, we will have hopefully some time for you to ask some questions. So who's PwC? Probably most of you know us already. We are nominated, or we have won 6 years in a row the award for the Global Best Treasury Consultancy. We are a very global organization. We have over 800 plus treasury experts worldwide. We have 150 treasury experts in Europe, as well as over 80 in Germany. Yeah, we have a long relationship with SAP. We are a platinum partner. We are co-innovation partner with SAP. And yeah, that's about PwC at this point. Christian.
Yeah, and you may don't know the Otto Group. The Otto Group was founded about 70 years ago in Germany as a mail order company and is now a 16 billion euro business, mainly spread out about end customer retail, logistics, and financial services. And while our main footprint remains in Europe, we also have strong businesses elsewhere around the world. And one interesting tidbit for today's session is maybe that we are quite a decentralized organization. So we have plenty ERP systems within our group. We have plenty systems that are processing payments. And yeah, that's why we thought it's a good idea to start a pre-study. We have already centralized a few things in the treasury area, obviously. So like cash pooling, intercompany funding, foreign exchange trading, and financial risk management. But we haven't yet centralized payment transactions. And so we thought it's a good idea to reach out. And the idea was not to save money, to say that right from the beginning. It was more to have a look at governance, at financial transparency, and about streamlining our processes. And with this idea, we reached out to PwC. Lennart.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Christoph. Yeah, when Otto approached us, we thought about, okay, how can we help Otto Group with defining the new environment for payment processes. And we decided to do, first of all, an analysis of the current situation. Yeah, where do they stay today with the technology, with the processes, but also with the organization and people and the governance for sure. Yeah, so we did, in the first phase, we did the analysis of the environment. We did many interviews with Otto Group, with the core team, and some selected companies that will reflect the Otto Group in general, because Otto has over 100 companies, so we took 5 companies as the proof of concept companies for the target operating model that will reflect in the end the environment of Otto. Yeah. And in the second phase, we defined the target operating model for Otto. And here, we, as I just mentioned, we used design dimensions. Yeah? And the design dimension is, on the one hand, is a governance, which is important. Yeah? It is also, for sure, the technology and the processes, but also the organization and people, because it's not only a technical implementation project, where you see SAP products, it's a huge transformation project. Yeah? So a lot of people are involved, the organization needs to change, there are tax and legal questions, so it's kind of a complex and big project in the end. When the target operating model was done and defined, And we said, okay, based on that, we will also calculate a business case. Yeah. So when we talk about a business case, there is of course the quality of a payment factory, but also the costs for sure. Yeah. And Christian will show you that a little bit later. And after that, we defined a transition rollout plan. Yeah. And I will come to that later. So if we talk about the target operating model, as I mentioned, you can here see in the middle, the black box is the target operating model, and underneath that there are the companies which we use for our analysis and the definition of the target operating model. Yeah? On the left side, we see the governance. You know, what is involved in the governance? Yeah, you need to see how will be the service model later on. Yeah? What will be the governance model? Is there a global treasury policy or payment policy in place? Yeah, that is everything you need to consider during such a project. Also, third parties that are involved, like banks, for example, or suppliers. The other one is the organization and people. Yeah, this, as I just mentioned, it's a big change for an organization to implement a payment factory. Yeah, maybe you will use a shared service center, or you will use or build a new practice within your headquarter. That are questions you need to answer if you go to that direction. Yeah. Also, the location is pretty crucial for implementing a payment factory. Also, people. Yeah, maybe you have to hire or train new people. So it's a new knowledge or skill set that is required to implement a payment factory. Not only from a technical point of view, but also from an organizational point of view, an operational point. Yeah? So, and also important on the right side, the processes that will be leveraged within the payment factory. Yeah? So we discussed with the Otto Group what are the processes usually used when setting up a payment factory. Yeah? So we discussed intercompany clearing, pooling, netting, payments on behalf of, everything you can imagine of. Also solutions like bank account management or sanction screening, what is very important for Otto Group to have a secured and safe environment for their payments. Yeah? And last but not least, the technology part, the dimension of technology. How will the infrastructure look like? What will be the interfaces? Yeah, what will be the clearing and routing system, but also what will be the payment platform, and what will be maybe necessary additional systems, like, for example, a sanction screening and embargo. Yeah? So this is the whole target operating model and the areas we have discussed and defined with them. So here you can see the timeline. As I mentioned, we did the pre-study. We started in June, and the project was like a 3-month project, tough schedule. Yeah, we finalized that in September and presented the results to the board of directors. We had a common project approach, so we had a joint effort together with Otto, all virtually for sure, and also with the subsidiaries or the proof of concept companies. And as I mentioned, we had a holistic analysis, so not only on the technology and processes, but also on organizational questions, tax and legal questions, yeah, and the governance and compliance topics. It was very important, and that is something we always recommend. If you go for a new solution or do an S/4HANA journey, go with a best practice approach. Yeah? Go with the scope items, go with the processes SAP recommends. Yeah? And we combine that with our knowledge. So we built the payment factory and the processes on the best practices. Yeah? So Otto had some developments for sure, and the goal was to get rid of that. Good. Now coming to the results of the first phase of the analysis. And you can see here, as I mentioned, the design dimensions. Yeah, we have governance, technology, processes, organizational, people, and we have a scale. Yeah, so this is very combined. The final report had over 120 slides, so this is a little bit combined here. But as you can see, we have a scale from low, average to high, and Otto had some initial ideas and functionalities like for a payment factory, but not enough. Yeah, really, if you benchmark that environment, there was room for improvement for sure. Yeah, governance, you don't have a common global payment policy. There was no strategy. Yeah, there was no body really responsible for holding the master data governance. So then we said, okay, this is below average. Same for the technology. There were a lot of interfaces. There were a lot of e-banking solutions. So it was really difficult to get control of the whole payment management and transactions, yeah, within this environment. Also, the processes, they had some custom developments to do netting approach, yeah, and this was kind of a challenge if they do the S/4HANA journey to get that migrated, and you don't want to take such a development into a new system environment. Yeah? So you want to start lean and use the best practice processes. So also there, as I mentioned, there was a lot of room for improvement. People in organization was, on average, it was good, yeah. It was okay. You have a shared service center already in place, which will initiate the payments. So there were some good points for that. Okay. Now coming to the target operating model. I will focus only on the processes and technology because it's we don't have enough time to discuss everything. So we said, okay, let's do, if you say we will roll out a payment factory. Yeah, you can't do a big bang approach with the whole functionalities in place. You have to slice and dice it. Yeah, and we said, okay, let's split the functionalities and the processes in 3 extension stages. Yeah. So the first stage would be to implement the technical core on a separate single instance for the payment factory based on S/4HANA, the latest release. Yeah? And there you will implement the advanced payment management. The in-house cash was needed for sure. You will use the advanced payment management, advanced cash management for the BCM functionality, for bank account management, and also for the cash position. Yeah? And also we said, okay, we need a single or an eye to the bank. We go probably with the MBC. Yeah? And we said, okay, that is from a functional point of view, this is the core, and this is the first stage we will implement. And we will start with not that complex processes like internal payments, payments in the name of. Yeah? You can start and do that really quickly, the routing or Pinot processes, and a centralized bank connectivity. And for sure, you can use the functionalities that APM offers to do the validation and the integration of payment files from different sources. In a later time, we do the expansion of the technical core. Yeah, now it's gotten, we are used to it. We are familiar with the payment factory. The technical core is set up and implemented. Now we face more complex processes. Yeah, so we are going to say, okay, now we had for example, MBC in place with the EBIX connections. We go more globally. Now we're facing a Swift interface, for example. Yeah, and also we start with a bank account management, trying to do a global bank account management or bank fee management. Yeah, and we start with more complex processes like payments on behalf of or Swift forwarding. Yeah. And we will start using the payment factory as a single source of truth for all bank-related master data and replicate that master data into the other systems. Yeah? And our recommendation was to go with extension phase 1 and 2. The third extension phase is not on the roadmap so far, but there will be more complex functionalities and technology like robotics, predictive analytics, and IBAN, and so on. So if you look at the architecture, it would like this. Yeah, you have the S/4HANA box in the middle as your central payment factory. And as I just mentioned, we will implement the products or the solutions in-house cache for netting, POBO, and pooling. We will have the BCM functionality provided by the advanced cash management for the payment release, but also for the monitoring of payments and bank statements. Yeah. We will use the bank relationship management for the bank fee management, and hopefully later on a later time, the EBAM. Yeah, so the E is still missing. And for sure, what is really important to have a centralized payment factory is the APM in that place, right? So Otto, you can see on the left, has a very decentralized system. There are a lot of SAP systems, but also non-SAP systems, yeah? And you need to somehow integrate the payment information into S4HANA. And there comes APM into place, yeah? We have also the cash management for cash position and the payment statistics. Yeah? Because if you say, okay, this is a global payment factory with the eye to the bank, we receive the bank statements, and we can do a cash position based on that. Yeah? We'll also have a middleware, probably the PI, to integrate the non-SAP solutions and do a conversion, especially when it comes to the replication of bank master data. What is not defined so far is the solution for the fraud detection and embargo screening. Maybe there will be BIS, yeah, we will see. We will talk about that. And for the bank connectivity, as I just mentioned, probably the SAP multi-bank connectivity.
Yeah. Let's just stay on that slide for a second, because I think it's interesting to understand that these other SAP is not just one box, but really several boxes, and these non-SAP is not just one box, but several boxes. So we are a very decentralized group, and as such, plenty of companies have their own SAP or non-SAP systems that are issuing payments. That's quite important, I think, to understand. Another thing is that this S4HANA system in the middle is a greenfield approach, so we won't use any old system we already have, but really set up a new system that is doing just this thing. Because of this nature that we have so many systems connecting to it, we don't want to use another system for that. Okay.
Right, thanks.
So let's have a look at the business case. And when we started looking at the business case, we tried to be really quantitative, yeah, and we tried to squeeze every figure, and we quickly realized that it's not about the money to introduce a payment factory. At least for us, it wasn't. It was more about the qualitative figures. So you really have to read this chart from the bottom, yeah, and the increases in liquidity management and the transparency that goes with them, that really drove our treasury department. The compliance footprint, when all these teams around the world are currently issuing payments and there's no joint compliance process and a small team that is releasing payments, that really made our compliance board nervous. And then fraud prevention is like a big topic currently, at least in the Otto Group, I guess also in your companies, and we had no centralized approach for that. And last up, IT security, yeah? I guess you all have faced security incidents in the last months. So have we, and so our board was very eager to go into this. And that was really the reason why we finally convinced them to do this project.
Right. And this is actually not what we see on the market, because usually a lot of companies say, okay, I need to save money if I implement a payment factory. Yeah, so we did the quantitative factors, but also the qualitative factors. And we did our calculation, it was negative. Yeah, even if you would have saved money on the transaction costs and closing bank accounts. But for Otto, it was very important to have a really safe and secure environment, which SAP can offer. Yeah, so that was very important for the Otto Group.
Maybe a reason why we can't calculate a business case in the Otto Group, because we don't leverage the effects that decentralized companies have. So of course we could calculate that every company that is doing payment over the holding has reduced cost for governance, for fraud, for whatever. But we don't do that because afterwards they were maybe pushed into actually realizing this reduction in workforce or whatever. And we have a very collaborative approach. Maybe that's not everybody's way of doing things, but we are quite successful with it, yeah. All right, so we convinced our board to go for expansion stage number 2. And we will start with simple forwarding payments in the first stage, and then expand to the full in-house bank in the stage 2. we realized that most of our qualitative figures were already realized with this expansion stage 2. However, of course, all the cool things are in expansion stage 3, or as it said here, what is to come afterwards. So we are looking forward to the following project as well. Yeah. What is then the transition roadmap? How do we want to do this? And we are a company that looks in quite long terms. So we said our board, okay, it's a project that will go over 6 years. However, of course, that is not what our Anspruch is, but rather our goal is to set up a fully functional payment factory within 2 years. And we will do this in the first wave, as you can read here, with 5 companies, pilot companies from the Otto Group, including the biggest company of the Otto Group. We will take 1 year for the forwarding scenario, and then another year for the full in-house bank scenario. And afterwards, the goal is to every year to leverage more companies and more countries, and to finally to have them all on board in the payment factory. And what was important to convince our companies, though we have the mandate to, that they have to use the payment factory afterwards, were these gates you can see here. So that they can rely on the fact that it actually works. So we won't proceed after a gate if not the first phase is really done. And as I said, the biggest company within the Otto Group says, yes, that's a good idea. The payment factory is actually working. Yeah, I think that sums it up. So let's take a look at your questions.
Yes, so we have one question. Please talk about the IBAN for Otto Group in phase 3.
Yeah, we are hoping to get an EBAM solution. Christian, I'm looking to you. No, EBAM, it's always a topic, but it's always, if you talk to the banks, they need to come up with a standard, and that's quite a pain still. Yeah, and once the banks are ready, I'm pretty sure it's on Christian's roadmap, and we can implement that, and that will be something then we need to go for. Yeah.
Good. So that was it. I think there are no more questions. So thank you so much, and we will look after your implementation.
Very good.
Wish you best of success, and
thank you.
Get to see you again. Thank
Very
you
good.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.